Welcome to our first ever podcast, and there'll be many of these coming down the road. I'm Jim McLennan, and I believe that tennis instruction has to be basic and lucid and accessible, and so we call it essential tennis instruction. And I also believe that many times tennis teachers will give 10, 12, 14 tips in a lesson, not always even related to one another, and the student thinks it's been a good lesson because of all the information, and I think it's a bad lesson because there's no way that they can assimilate and use all that. So I want to do this in very small, accessible bites. And don't be thrown by how brief this is, but rather use this in a way because it's accessible. I think there's 3 keys to playing winning tennis. 3 keys to playing winning tennis. And certainly there could be 100 keys, but I like to present 3. First and foremost, you've got to learn to keep the ball in play. But I want to embellish this. Winners have to know why they're winning. Losers have to know why they're losing. Losers have to be able to change their game. Winners have to be able to impose their game. And first and foremost, if you're determined to keep the ball in play, you then can see if that's in fact a winning strategy. If your opponent's making errors, you've solved the problem. If you're keeping the ball in play and your opponent is winning, now you've solved the problem in the sense that you know you have to change tactics. But first and foremost, to play winning tennis at any level, this game's about errors. Point number 2. Always value the first impression. And that's the case in life, but it's also the case in tennis. As much as you can, you have to try to win the first point of every single game. You have to try as hard as you can to win the first game of every single set. And many times, if you have an easy match where it seemed like it was close, but you win 1 and 2 or 2 and 3, if you go back, you would actually see if someone scored it, you are almost always ahead in the game. It's so much easier to serve when you're ahead 15-love than when you're serving at love 15. It's so much easier to return serve when it's love 15 than if it's 15-love. And I think too often players overlook the importance of the first point. And number 3, always listen. They make the joke in tennis that you have to be a watchmaker when hitting the ball, and you have to be a policeman when they're hitting it. You have to see everything on the other side of the net. And too often I think people are too focused on their own game to ever see what's happening. So here's an example of listening. If you pay very close attention, you can often find the opponent's weakness when they say, "Geez, I missed it again. God, how'd I do that?" And I think that advertisement tells you how to play them. And so winning tennis is about making a commitment to monitor and minimize your errors. It's about knowing the importance of the first point of every game, and it's the ability to look across that net and size somebody up and listen for that advertisement. Once many years ago at a match at the Circus Club, on a no-ad point, I threw up a high lob and the guy bungled it. We got to another game point. I threw up another high lob, bungled it again. On the third one, he took and threw his racket and broke it. And what was interesting was there was a time in my life I never would have known how to see what weaknesses are. But players play well if we play to their strength, and players play poorly if we play to their weakness. So if you become the policeman and can see everything on the other side of the net, you learn how to play somebody, especially by listening to their advertisements. And if you want a 4th tip, it's this. Always be silent when you're playing. Arthur Ashe was the model of this. You could never tell if he was winning or losing. And if you're the one who goes, "God, I missed a backhand," and you play somebody who has seen this podcast, they may actually use that against you. Jim McLennan's Essential Tennis Instruction Podcast. We have many more of these. We have a blog. We have a full product stream. If you're looking for stuff that's accessible, if you're looking for something lucid, and if you're looking for something that's time-tested and proven, I hope you'll join me. We've got a lot more coming down the road.